Motivational Monday this day, and here to talk with us, to give us some insight on what's going on, what's been going on in Congress. It is our Congressman Steve Cohn of the 9th Congressional District. Good morning to you, Congressman Cohen. How are you?
I'm great, Bev, and I hope all of your listeners are as well.
Right. How you been holding out through this COVID-19?
Well, we've been doing our job, working on constituent needs and the Democratic caucus and proposing different legislation to help people get through this financially as well as health-wise. It's been a busy time because it's lots of things change every day, and we've been to Washington 3 times for votes. Pretty eerie going through those airports and being on those airplanes, but so far so good. And I'm doing okay. I mean, I miss sports. I miss the Tigers. I miss the Grizz. I miss all that stuff and baseball, eating out in restaurants and seeing friends and people and going to events and shaking hands. But that's where we are today. It's a new world, and you just got to adjust. Change is the only constant in life.
One of the things, and I'm glad you're safe, Congressman, one of the things I know my listeners wanted to ask you, and those stimulus checks, and some people were concerned, Congressman, that they didn't get one, where they're supposed to get one, and what's going on. Can you kind of talk to us about that stimulus check?
Well, the stimulus checks were supposed to go out if you filed income taxes. They should have gone out directly from the IRS to you, and I think most people should have received them by now. If you didn't, I think SSI and veterans should have got them also by direct checks. And then, of course, Trump put his name on a bunch of checks that for other people that instead of going direct deposit, they were sent out. I don't know if they're behind some in getting them out, but they should have gotten out $1,200 per person in the household, adults, the spouse and all, and then $500 per child up to a certain max. And then we proposed another round of those in the CARES 2 bill that we passed last week. If you have problems with these, if you haven't gotten the check and you think you're entitled to one and supposed to get one, and everybody should be getting one, call my office, and we're still working. And the number is here in Memphis, 901-544-4131. And Wiley Henry will get your call. I think the phones, we're working remotely. Phones are forwarded to Wiley's Washington phone. He's got an iPhone. And he'll get your name and number and try to get somebody to check on your case.
Okay. Talk about the CARES 2 bill. What is that about?
Well, it's a start. You know, Nancy Pelosi is I think, is like a Florence Nightingale of politics. She's unbelievable how much she's done and how hard she's working. 80-year-old lady does not miss a beat. And she's, with the Democratic caucus's input, we have caucus conference calls twice a week. And Steny Hoyer and Jim Clyburn and the committee chairs are all up there working with her. We came up with a bill. It came to $3 trillion. The Fed Chairman Powell and others like Paul Krugman have said that's what we need to do, and not to be worried about a deficit, because it's cheap money right now, and it's our money that we're lending ourselves. And it involves $1 trillion to state and local governments that will help pay for the salaries of teachers, firemen, policemen, and other public employees, and see to it that we don't get a property tax increase, which otherwise local government would have to give us, or some other increase or loss of services. It also has money in there for healthcare workers, has money for people who are in the hazardous, difficult positions for hazardous pay, has money to try to keep the post office afloat, $25 billion for the post office, which Trump seems to want to get rid of because he doesn't like the fact they're not charging Jeff Bezos and Amazon enough money. Of course, they charge them more money. They'll just start using FedEx and UPS, and won't do the post office any good. It'll do them harm. But he's got a thing on for Jeff Bezos. So he's got money in for the post office. He's got another round of payments to individuals, $1,200 again, this time limited to $6,000 per household as a max. And it's got money in there for testing. We've got to get testing up in this country. We've got to get money in research up. We've got several areas, and I got several areas in the bill I was personally responsible for getting in. One would give Tennessee $54 million for hospitals that do disproportionate share. That's been an issue I've championed over the last 10 years. When we got TennCare, we were put out of the disproportionate share formula. We got it back under President Obama, and then we had to kind of get it back here in the CARES Act, and we got $54 million for Tennessee, which mostly helps Region 1 and Methodist, are the two hospitals that do most of the care for people that might not be able to pay. We also got in the bill a repeal of $100 billion. Get this right.
Okay.
$100 billion in this tax year alone would be given because of something Trump and McConnell snuck into this bill, which we didn't know about. I don't think anybody on the Democratic side knew about it. They snuck it in. They drew the CARES 1 bill, and it would give $100 billion tax relief to people, 80% of whom make $1 million a year and more. That's just nothing to do with the coronavirus. It's just theft, giving money to Trump's real estate investors and hedge fund pals, and that needs to be repealed. And Representative Doggett and Representative Lara and I championed that, and we've got that in the bill to repeal it, part of it, and that will be a lot. And overall, it's $100 billion in 1 year, supposed to be $300 billion over 3 or 4 years. That's absurd. Those people should be taxed more, not being given money back. Citizens are given $1,200. These people are given, on average, $1 million each. So that's something we got into repeal. We also got in extra money for legal aid programs. Legal services is going to be a lot more work and a lot less money. So we got some money in for legal services. We've been working a lot on the transportation committee on safety on airplanes, and we got some airlines to go along with requiring employees and patrons customers to wear masks on the plane. Most of the airline terminals have expanded that to once you get through the TVA line, TSA lines, you're supposed to have your mask on, and that protects people. When you wear your mask, you're protecting yourself, but more than that, you're protecting others. So that if you can be asymptomatic and pass this coronavirus along to people, not know you've got it, but in fact do have it, and if you talk loudly, if you talk at all, your air pustules can get out there and affect somebody else. When people talk about 6 feet being social distancing, that's a guide. I think it ought to be more than that, because, and especially if someone's talking loud or laughing, speaking of singing, those air travels further. And when it's in small buildings, if you're in a building where the limited ventilation from outside, not a great ventilation system, a lot of people, and if there's a lot of talking, and if there's singing going on, you're at a higher rate for getting coronavirus. And, of course, those things remind me of two things that they're close to me. One is Congress, a large group of people, lots of talking inside, limited ventilation, and churches, lots of singing, lots of talking. So we got to be careful, even with the mask. Try to be separate social distance and try to limit your. And when you talk to people, you don't have to talk to them face to face. You can talk obliquely, where your air is going in a different direction than the person's face, and then not look at them. When you look at them, you're more likely to put them in jeopardy. But the bill's a good bill. The bill's not going to pass the Senate. We've been told by McConnell and Trump they want tax breaks for the wealthy and legal liability for businesses before they'll agree to anything. And they want to wait and see how things are going. Well, we know how things are going. South.
Yeah.
So not good. But it's a first offer. At least the Democrats in the House got together. We passed the bill. The Senate can respond to it. This is the way legislation works. One House passes it, and we have two different parties in charge of the two different houses. You're going to have difference in values and difference in legislation. So one House passes it, the other one amends it, and then you sit down and try to work something out. At least we've gotten the process started. We'll have to wait to see if Mitch McConnell and the Republicans even pick it up.
So Congressman, with that, and I want to be clear with our listeners because they're asking, so is this CARES 2 bill act, is that the second round of stimulus, or are we going to have that?
Well, it's got to pass the Senate and be signed by the president. So we've started the process.
Okay.
And it's stimulus, Beth, but this stuff is really relief.
Yeah.
It does stimulate the economy to put money out there, and the Fed's done a lot with putting money in the economy and propping up businesses, and the PPP did some of that by putting money in the economy and helping people, but it's relief. It's just relief. It's not so much, it's relief and stimulus.
How are you all feeling, Congressman, about, because the president, he wants to open us up and get us going to the economy. What are some from your colleagues? Are most of them in agreement with that?
Well, you got a definite partisan split on this too. Most Democrats think we need to listen to science, listen to the healthcare professionals, and open slowly and open when we know that the rates of infection have gone down for at least 2 weeks. In fact, the president's own team, through the CDC, the president's own guidelines, we shouldn't open up until you've seen a 2-week lessening of infections by testing. These states haven't abided by it. Hardly any states have had 2 weeks going down, but the president's gone against his own guidelines. The president is all hell-bent on getting reelected, and he will do anything to get reelected. He will violate any law. He will tell any lie. He will do anything to get reelected, and he will put people's lives in jeopardy. And the sooner we open, if there are not indices that the virus has gone down for 2 weeks or has gone down in certain ways, we need to. So the Democrats basically, we all would like to see the economy reopen and life to go back to normal, but we want to do it where people's lives aren't used as sacrifices for the overall president's ratings and economy, which is what he's running his reelection on. Republicans generally support the president. When I went up to Washington last week on the plane, you had to wear a mask on the plane, and you're supposed to wear one in the terminal, too, once you get through TSA. Not required, but you should. I noticed every Republican congressman that was on the plane out of Memphis and out of Charlotte, there's no more nonstops to D.C., they had their masks off in the airports. And they were talking to each other like it was last year, 1 foot apart, 2 foot apart, talking without a mask. That's just not smart. And so the Republicans will do what Trump says. They emulate Trump, and they want to act like they're kind of macho. I know I had my mask on about 3-4 weeks ago when I came back from Washington, and a Republican guy from South Carolina, pretty nice fella, I guess, came up and he looked at me and he said, "What are you doing, surgery?" And I want to say, "No, you dumb fool, I'm protecting you."
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a difference in Democrats and Republicans. Democrats really respect science. Republicans don't. Democrats don't give a hoot what Trump say. We know that Trump's not speaking right. He's just not right. There's something wrong there. Putting just Lysol in drinking Lysol or injecting Lysol to get rid of the virus.
Yeah.
Putting some kind of light in your body. And this isn't new for him. Last year he said we should drop a nuclear bomb maybe to deflect a hurricane's path. The guy's he's not right.
No,
if he was in elementary school, they put him back a grade.
Yeah. And also, Congressman, which is, I think, is crazy, he's so hell-bent on opening up schools, too, for children. Come on.
Well, he and Rand Paul, the senator from Kentucky, who's a doctor, you'd think he'd know better. Children can get the virus, and some children have died from it. They're not as affected as older people are, and older is considered over 65. But it's even older that in the nursing homes that are a lot of the victims. But children can get it, and they can pass it on and be asymptomatic. And if they go home, they pass it on to their parents. And if they see the grandparents, they can pass it on to them. So we got to be real careful when we open up. And Rand Paul, he was up in the Senate, thought he might have been exposed to somebody and might have had coronavirus exposure. And so he took a test. Here's a doctor takes a test to see if he's got COVID, and he still goes to the Senate and jumps in the swimming pool and swims. And then they found out he has it, so they got to, of course, close the swimming pool and have to check out everybody that's in the pool. I mean, he's a doctor, and he's the one that's going, we need to open up the schools. Kids can't have it. And if you've had it once, you can't get it again. I read today in the paper there are like 8 or 9 soldiers on the USS Teddy Roosevelt who had the coronavirus, were quarantined for 2 weeks over there. I think they're in Guam, and they got back on the boat and they tested positive again. So there's nothing that says if you've had coronavirus you are immune from it, which most illnesses you have antibodies built up. And Rand Paul's up there not wearing a mask in the Senate and saying he's the most safe person in the world because he's already had it. He's a doctor, obviously. Something's happened to him to where what he should have learned in medical school isn't coordinating right.
Yeah, right. A question came in, Congressman, and I don't know if you can answer this. They wanted to know if senior citizens are carried by their children on their taxes, will those seniors not get a stimulus check?
Well, I understand it that you couldn't take them as a dependent and get the $500. You couldn't get them yourself as a dependent. But I think the seniors can get the check themselves. I think the seniors, is independent of them, seniors can get a check. Yes.
Okay. How are we looking, Congressman, here in the 9th Congressional District?
I think we're doing okay. I'm not, our numbers are kind of getting steady. People are getting tested, and you ought to get tested. It's free at a lot of these testing sites, and they've got them at Walgreens, they've got them at the fairgrounds, they've got them at the community health centers. You should get tested. I think we're doing pretty good on testing. I've got to give high marks to both of our mayors and our health department. I think they've done a good job. We haven't opened up like the rest of the state has, and to Governor Lee's credit, he's let the 4 major urban areas, I think he called it, it's supposed to be 6. I don't know really if I don't count Jackson and Johnson City, but I guess they're included to open under different parameters that are determined by local government. I think that's good. The state's not been good on letting local government decide which historical monument should be up and not, and some other things like the marijuana legislation that was passed by the city council and making it a non-criminal offense. The state took over, but the governor's allowed for the local governments in those 6 areas to make those decisions. And Strickland and Harris have done a good job of keeping us a little bit more guarded. So I think we're doing better in some areas, but we're right next to Mississippi and Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Brittany County, I think, has one of the higher rates of infection in Arkansas, and DeSoto County has one of the higher rates of infection in Mississippi, and that affects us as well. And they haven't done as good a job as they can, although their mayor, the mayor of West Memphis, has been strong.
Yeah.
I commend. He's told people, get your act together, and he said it in pretty serious, stark terms.
And one of the things I want to ask you before you get out of here, Congressman, and we know with the COVID-19, we've been all wrapped up in that, but isn't it important the people still need to be counted in that census, correct? The 2020 census.
The 2020 census, we had a chance, and I know to respond by email, and then people have been sending out forms. Any way you can do it, every Memphian has to participate in the census. That's how we get our monies from the federal government. They determine formulas of where people are that need by population, that get food stamps, SNAP payments, get WIC payments, get all kind of payments from the federal government, and the monies to go to health centers and go to hospitals, et cetera, et cetera. So for us to get our fair share, everybody needs to sign up. There's no reason not to. It doesn't take long, and we need to participate in the census.
And again, Congressman, we have to wait to see what the Senate does and hope this bill will pass, this CARES 2 bill.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell, he wants liability protection for businesses that do things during the coronavirus reopening that somebody might find to be negligent, and wants them to have immunity from lawsuits. And just about every group that supports justice and labor unions and all represent the workers don't want that to be the case. And think the workers, if they're exposed improperly, where there's negligence, that they should be able to recover. So that's a sticking point, and President Trump wants deductions from taxes for people that go out and spend a lot of money on food and wine and drink, and deduct those business meals, which used to be deducted. Great deal, especially for people in New York, go out and spend thousands of dollars on food and let the government pay for give or take half of it with the deduction. That was eliminated. He wants that to come back. That's for business and for wealthy people. And he wants a relief in the area of who pays the payroll tax. And that goes about $50 to the lower 20% get about $50 relief from that. The upper 10% get about a $3,000 relief. So it's a tax scam too. And that's where they're holding out, and that's going to be a problem. We have to deal with them. They always look out for the wealthy, and that's what the Republicans do. They look out for business. They look out for lenders. They look out for banks. They look out for the wealthy. Democrats look out for consumers, look out for the average worker. We need a $15 minimum wage. I mean, the idea that some of these people are working at Kroger's and warehousing jobs, et cetera, and not getting a $15 minimum wage is disgusting. and we realize how important they are. Delivery people, postal workers, and they're out there working and keeping the society going, and they're not getting paid enough. But we have a lot of changes, and I tell you what, Trump, he blames everybody for everything. He takes no responsibility. He said, "I'm not responsible. I'm not responsible." And yesterday he said Barack Obama was a incompetent president.
Right.
I mean, he just projects. He is an incompetent president. He's the worst president. He's worse than Andrew Johnson or James Buchanan. I went through when I was in Washington this past week. The lady that delivers our mail came and she said, "You going to be here for a while?" I said, "Yeah, I'll be here all day." She said, "I got a bunch of mail to bring you because our folks are all working remotely." She brought me 2 cartons of mail for the last couple of months, and I went through it all. Most of it's kind of junk, a bunch of magazines from trade groups and blah, blah, blah. Some of it was letters. Some of it was different correspondence, and I went through it and tried to get it dispersed out and get it responded to. But there were, just so much in it. You look at it and you realize we just got to get more control over what we're doing. One lady wrote me about her husband. He'd had a heart transplant. He was 73 years old, and he hadn't been able to get out of jail to house arrest. And he's 73 years old and he's had a heart transplant. And yet Paul Manafort gets released, and he hadn't even served 50% of his term. If you're a friend of the president's like Paul Manafort, you get special treatment. And if you're just a regular citizen with a heart transplant, you don't. And I got that letter from that lady, and it was hard to believe. I just sat there and thought, what's going on? And you get so many examples of that where the president's people get one type of care and treatment and everybody else the other. This Mike Flynn case, our committee, I've recommended to our Judiciary Committee, and we're going to do it. We're going to file a friend of the court, amicus curiae brief with Justice Sullivan, opposing the Justice Department dropping the case, dismissing the prosecution so that Flynn gets off scot-free. Flynn lied to Congress. Flynn lied to the FBI. Stone lied to Congress. Flynn lied to the FBI. And he lied to the FBI about talking to the Russian ambassador. Well, why was he lying about talking to the Russian ambassador? There's stuff we still don't know for sure that the Mueller report couldn't nail down. But there was a lot of communications between Trump and the Russians and Trump's friends and the Russians, at least Trump's friends and the Russians, and Flynn was one of them, that don't smell right. And the Russians are going to be involved in this election, too. There's just a lot of situations where we need to get justice, and we're not going to have justice as long as this guy's in president, blaming Obama, kicking Obama, protecting Manafort. It's going to protect Roger Stone, and who knows how much money they're making out of this CARES bill. Mnuchin is distributing the money. Some of those folks, the public companies that got this money, have returned it. Some of them haven't. Mm-hmm. But they need to go after those people. This was poorly administered, poorly thought out, and we just don't have a government that works. President Obama was right in his graduation speech saying some of these people that the adults thought they knew everything, now they realize they not only don't know anything, but they don't want to do anything.
Right.
He was talking about Trump, and he was right. We've got a very serious problem in Washington with a lack of leadership.
And Congressman, it seems like the Department of Justice is going to hell. What's going on with them?
Barr was brought in to be Roy Cohn was a man dead for many years, a disgusting human being, made his name back in the McCarthy hearings in the 50s, and he was Trump's good pal. And Roy Cohn was nasty. There's been a few movies about him, but he says never admit you did wrong and never back up and just press. Well, he wanted his Roy Cohn. He said, "Where's my Roy Cohn?" Bill Barr's his Roy Cohn. Bill Barr will do anything for Donald Trump to keep him in power. I think it's part of the Federalist Society, a very conservative group of lawyers who've been determining and vetting the judges that have been appointed to be the judges for the rest of most of our lives and for a long time, including Kavanaugh and Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. And they, I think they got Bill Barr in this position as Attorney General to keep Trump in office so that Trump can keep putting these conservative judges on who want to deny people, women, health care, support provisions that change rules and regulations that protect the health of the people through fair and good water and air standards and protect our environment. And they want to change all of that, and they want to be able to take care of the oil industry. So, yeah, Bill Barr is doing whatever he can to be Donald Trump's Roy Cohn, to support him over the Justice Department. We had 2,300 former Justice Department officials join a letter with a former judge named Gleason saying that what he did in the Flynn case was wrong. They did the same thing earlier when he wanted to reduce the sentence for Roger Stone. And some of his prosecutors have dropped off the case. Some of them have left the Justice Department written letters saying how awful it is for the Justice Department, which is supposed to do things on a judicial basis, a legal basis, and what's right for justice and not what's right for the president and his friends. So it's a bad situation. We're going to have Bill Barr before our committee. I look forward to the opportunity to face him. Last time, he chickened out, and I brought some chicken just to show it.
Right.
Some people liked it, some didn't. Most people in my district liked it. And I'll tell you a secret. KFC is a great symbol. They got that big bucket. But if you want the best chicken, if you're in Memphis, there are lots of places you can go. And I got a lot of grief from people saying it should have been Jack Purtle's, it should have been Gus's, it should have been Joe's, it should have been whatever. You couldn't get that in D.C. that night. So you could get KFC. When I came home, I went straight to Church's and I got some chicken down there at Airways and near the airport, and it was good chicken. And my favorite, I think, is the Super Cash Saver on Madison. They got the best chicken.
Okay. Well, Congressman, thank you for keeping us abreast, and I hope you do call me anytime to let us know what's going on, and we'll be watching to see what the Senate does with this bill.
Bev, you're great. You are Oprah and Johnny Carson put together. I love being on your show, and we're blessed to have you, and stay healthy.
You too, Congressman. You stay healthy and stay well. Thank you for talking with us this morning.
Very, very welcome. Take care.
Bye-bye. That's our 9th Congressional District Congressman, Steve Cohen. You heard him. Whoa. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so y'all heard about the checks. So it's going to be up to that Senate. Mm-hmm.